So how are you guys doing? How are how'd y'all's practices doing March?
Phenomenal. Awesome. Rock star.
Yeah. Do they have record months?
All of them.
Because I'm seeing that for the most part, just about everybody had a record March in production. Clay, what do you think caused it? I know because I said for a while, I was like, when the vaccination starts getting rolling, I said there's still a lot of pent up demand and a lot of pent up pressure in your patient base that hasn't been relieved yet because a lot of people are still staying at home. But once this election gets out of the way and once the vaccination starts getting rolled out, I said people are going to start getting a lot more comfortable getting out and going, doing the things that they needed to do or wanted to do. And I anticipated growth either like late in the first quarter or early in the second quarter. And I'm wondering if that's what it is. I'm wondering if, in other words, do you think the spike in March is sustainable? Is that like the new level of production, or is that like just a random anomaly?
Well, historically, in some of my offices, March and April, January, March and April have been pretty strong months anyway, right? Because March is when spring break hits. So families are off, so they're getting their dental work done. They're at home, they're not working. And then April, there are other places where spring break takes place in April, like North Carolina. So they're on spring break this week. So I just think March and April historically have been good months, at least when I look at the trends. They've historically been good, except for last year.
See, those things don't occur to me. I don't know if it's because I'm not married. I don't have kids, so I don't have to think about that stuff. You know what I mean? But it's like for me, even if I'm traveling, if it's got to get done, it's got to get done. I might as well just schedule it and get it done. It really doesn't matter what time of year it is.
Yeah, when you have kids, when you finally have kids, it will occur to you. I promise. Because you'll want to know when spring break is, when fall break is, when you can get Christmas shopping done, when you can get the summer vacations in.
But can't you just check them out of school and take them?
But then they have unexcused absences for a week. Except just for doctor's appointments. I mean, you can check them out and take them back, but it depends on when you can get the doctor's appointment, right? So in Tullahoma, you can check a kid out for an hour to go to a doctor's appointment or an hour and a half for a doctor's appointment. But if they miss more than, a quarter of the school day, they're marked absent for the entire school day. And you can't check them out before, or you can't, if you're going to check them out for the day, but you want it to count as a full day, you can't check them out before 1:00. So they have to be there at least until 1 for it to count as a full school day.
I think a lot of the schools are becoming less tolerant also because so many kids miss so much, and it's been so hard that I've been hearing that a lot of the schools are less flexible about letting kids out of school to go, and they've been a little more rigid about the reasons for absences. And I know that the schools right now, I mean, for a lot of them, it's kind of a mess right now. Trying to keep good.
Well, yeah. And you have to think about the teachers too. I mean, I really feel for the teachers because since the beginning of this school year, they've had half of their students on virtual, half of their students in person. They're having to build 2 different curriculums, lead 2 different curriculums, try to balance grading and all of that stuff. I mean, it's been a lot on our school. I mean, it's been a lot on them. Can you imagine? Can you imagine trying to service a client, but having to develop your in-office workshops 2 different ways? I mean, what did we go through in trying to do the virtual and the live and figuring all that out? And they have to do it every single day.
I'm actually doing that right now for one of my clients that wants both for their people managers and also for their individual contributors. They want them trained on 4 different principles, but they want them trained completely differently based on their level. So I'm writing 2 different trainings. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
And I'm delivering it virtual still. I'm going to be delivering virtually to till they're not back 100% till September. So, there's a lot of places that are not going to require people to go back 100% till fall, if at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing that we learned was how much, what's the word I'm looking for? How necessary it was to have an office space.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start looking at your P&L and saying, oh, we eliminated a couple of costs there and that was not a big deal. So let's just keep rolling.
Overhead.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that dentists didn't realize is that it's impacting their business as well. I think because in dentistry, you're basically back to normal, right? Most dentists are at least back to Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5 or, 7 to 4 or whatever. But the people that they serve are not. The people they serve are not going to be. And like I know in Memphis, they said, oh, well, we're going to add days to the school year because we're going to add 7 or 10 snow days or something. And the teachers got mad because they're like, you're just making our school years longer. Because if we have a snow day, you want them all to be taught virtually on snow days. And the district was like, yeah, we're making the years longer. And it's just because now everybody's learned that they can work virtually, the dynamic has changed so much. And I think everybody that serves has to figure out how that's going to play into their practice, right? So if you're in a service industry where you're still working or operating, whether it's a restaurant, a dental office, a medical office or whatever, how are you going to serve this new dynamic? Because people are not going to work anymore from 9 to 5. People are working much different hours.
Are any of your guys doing like teledentistry, telemedicine?
A little bit, but it's not. Yeah, I'm seeing more of that, but it's mostly for like implant consults, full mouth rehabs, Invisalign. They're doing those types of virtual consults where they can do like a virtual simulation of what the end result is going to be. But I am seeing more and more of that, of them being willing to do like the whole virtual.
I'll tell you who needs help, man, is medical. Medical needs 10 times more help than dentistry will ever need. And I say that with respect, but I'm telling you, I went to, y'all remember the PRP I had on my shoulders?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then I went, and so I went and I saw the doctor. He told me what was up. Said I had small tears in my labrum and my rotator cuff on both shoulders, and did x-rays. 6 months after that, I get a bill in the mail for like $900. I call urgent or fast pace. And I'm like, hey, what's this for? And they said, oh, it's for this x-ray. Your insurance hasn't paid and something. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, cause I paid like $1,800 on the day of my appointment. And I was like, okay, I don't have a problem paying for what I owe. Like I'm perfectly okay doing that, but nobody ever said I owed anything. Like I said, how much is it? They said it's $1,800. I said, here you go. Here's cash. And then I walked out and then I get a bill 6 months later.
Yeah.
And so now I went to a orthopedic doctor in Murfreesboro at Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance. Huge place. They got, I don't know how many doctors. And so they were looking for my MRI. And so I contacted FastPace and I said, hey, I need to get my MRI on a disc so I can take to Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for my appointment on Friday. And they said, we don't have an MRI on record. And I said, well, how did he know that there were tears in my labrum and my rotator cuff on both shoulders? And she read the notes in the computer. She's like, well, I don't know. Let me read the notes. And she read the notes and she read and says, no tears in labrum or rotator, no tears, something. And I said, well, how does he know? And she said there wasn't an MRI. So I contact my insurance company. I contact the other orthopedic doctor. I contact my primary care physician. I said, where's the MRI? There's never been one. And so I was like, well, if there was never an MRI and he saw an x-ray doesn't show soft tissue. And I said, how did he know whether there were or were not tears? He wrote in his notes, no tears. He told me to my face, tears. Forget all that. How does he know if he never saw an MRI? Right. I was like, okay. I said, well, long story short, let's do this. Here, let me sign a medical release, and I need all of my medical records sent over here because I'm going over there now. And so she said, no problem. We'll have that done by the end of the day. I show up for my appointment on Friday. They haven't received anything. And so now they need to take an MRI or an X-ray. And I was like, well, I just paid for something. I've never seen it. I don't know what it is, but I paid somebody for something, and it's supposed to be for this. So let's get that. And I contact them. I called them. And so here, now my appointment's getting delayed, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you knew my appointment was on Friday. If you're going to send it over by the end of the day, does it not occur to you to contact them to make sure that they got it before I show up and they don't have it? Mm-hmm. It's like that whole workflow's broken. I'm like, man, there's such a miscommunication. It's like, the
point of the Affordable Care Act, part of that was that all of our records were online so everybody could access it, right? I mean, that was the point, was so that everybody could access your records. That was one of the huge driving components. Now we're finding that that's not occurring.
Right.
And you go, okay, I need a little clarity right now, because if everybody's supposed to be able to access this, if that was one of the key components of that act, then what actually happened? What actually happened that was going to make healthcare work better, work more smoothly, make sure that everybody was communicating, make sure that people were medicated appropriately, not over-medicated, control the opiate flow. There was so many things that went into this that was supposed to be
and you were forced to pay for it. Whether you were going to participate in it or not, you were forced to pay for it. Like when I got my health insurance, there was a thing in there that said this much goes to the Affordable Care Act. I'm like, well, I'm going to have private insurance, and which you were allowed to do. So I was like, I'm going to have private insurance. And if you opted into it, then something got deducted on your taxes. If you opted out of it, then you paid more in taxes. So they were going to get that money from you one way or the other. Right. So I'm okay if you want to tax me. I want to have some say so in where the funds are going. Right. I don't want to get on a political tangent here, but that's a real concern, man. That's a real problem. Here's what happened. People talk about it. But there's really no actions taking place. I mean, you look at when they pass these huge stimulus bills and millions of dollars in foreign aid going to all these places, like who's the whistleblower? Who's the person that says, well, wait a second, this is an economic stimulus package for the United States. No, you cannot put stuff in. You can't put foreign aid in there for these countries.
You run a real risk if you publicly blow a whistle on that. I mean, Google, Facebook, they will shut your butt down.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
but that's censorship. That censorship should be illegal.
You will be deleted.
And this is why I'm a conspiracy theorist. Because of that. So, Jon, to your point, when Chase broke his wrist, right? Took him to the emergency room. He had a surgery that night. And the surgeon told us that night that he broke it. Like, he never really sees broken wrist. He sees fractured wrists, right? Mm-hmm. Like they fracture it. It's, whatever. But the way Chase's bone came out, this bone came out.
It came out of the skin?
It didn't break the skin, but you can see it you could see it pushing against the skin.
When you were taking him to this baseball game in Nashville and y'all were halfway there and he said, my wrist doesn't feel good, at any point did he say, hey, there's a bone sticking out right here?
No, he didn't. And it was archery, not baseball.
Archery.
And he wasn't like crying like he was in just writhing pain. So I thought, oh, it's just a bruise, no big deal. He's fine. But bottom line is, at the emergency room, they did the first surgery. They did whatever they did. He was in a cast. He went back a couple of weeks later and his wrist wasn't healing. It was still broken. His arm, like this, his forearm was crooked, curved, like a C. And it was like, what is going on here? And so then we go back. He has to have a second surgery, right? And the doctor was like, yeah, he said with the way his bone broke, all he had to do was wiggle his fingers and it would break again. And I'm like, then why didn't you put the pins in the first time? Why would you put this 9-year-old under general anesthesia?
Trust a 9-year-old not to wiggle their fingers.
Right.
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
Right.
You couldn't have done the surgery the right way the first time. But here's what I believe. And again, this is my conspiracy theorist mind. It's just a way to get the insurance money. Right? So they can charge for one surgery, get the insurance money. Surgery didn't work. They can have the x-rays to prove it, send it back in, do the surgery again, get the insurance money a second time. And just like you, Jon, I'm sure we're going to get a bill 6 months from his first surgery for the balance of whatever insurance didn't cover. And then 2 weeks later, we're going to get another bill for what insurance didn't pay the second time.
Here's another way of looking at it here, because I would argue that the deception, or maybe that's the wrong word. I would argue that the corruption isn't on the provider end. In some small cases, obviously you got doctors that commit insurance fraud all the time, right? But it's a very small percentage of the whole group, right? So I would argue that the corruption is probably much less so on the provider side and much more so on the insurance side. And what I mean by that is, obviously insurance companies are big corporations, their shareholders want dividends. So it's always about how do we get a little bit more profit, a little bit more profit, a little bit more profit. Well, we charge our members a little bit more in their premium. We reimburse the providers a little less. And then you've got healthcare professionals with hundreds of thousands, $500,000 worth of student loans, right? That are expecting to make some kind of a living since I have MD or DDS behind my name. Okay. And so it becomes for me, it becomes a volume game, because now I have to get volume to make. And so less quality of care and more volume in order for me to make the living that I should be able to make given my investment in my education. So I'd say it's more pressure coming from that end that causes.
I think it's on all ends. Yes. And I think it's on all ends. It's just like a lot of our dental clients, they feel pressure from patients because insurance won't cover certain procedures. The doctors feel pressure from employees because they want to be paid, right? They want to earn a decent living wage. And so it's pressure from all fronts. Mm-hmm. And so people begin to learn how to play by the rules. And I think that's true everywhere. Don't you guys? Mm-hmm. I mean, you learn how to play by the rules. Yeah. About what is acceptable and what is allowable.
Yeah.
Right. You've got insurance companies that are trying to determine care, right? You've got insurance companies without doctors, without dentists that are determining care based on what their financial portfolio feels is right. And what they very possibly could be telling that doctor is, hey, you need to do it this way first. If it doesn't work, go back and then we'll pay you to do it the other way. But we're not going to pay you to do it the right way or the more complete way or the higher level of standard of care way until you've exhausted the less expensive way.
It's a risk. It's a risk. Yeah. So let's try to do it the cheapest way possible. Let's try to do it the cheapest way possible. See if we can get away with that.
Yeah.
You know, if that gets us by, if that doesn't work, then we'll spend a little bit more.
Right. But I even remembered being on the phone with, and you're absolutely right, Carrie. I don't believe it is the providers trying to do a disservice. Maybe I misspoke that. I really don't believe that they're intentionally trying to do that. But I do believe, based on insurance restrictions, and because so many people are like, well, is insurance going to cover it? If insurance doesn't cover it, I can't do it. That they get conditioned to do what insurance will cover first. Mm-hmm. They get conditioned to present what insurance will cover first. And then if that doesn't work, then they'll go the next route. But even when the financial coordinator called us and was like, we need to verify your insurance. And Chris and I had already talked, and like, we were worried about Chase ever being able to use his hand.
Right.
Because, you know, if it goes so long, then he loses dexterity in his hand. And so we were like, listen,
I mean, there's a million things.
Yeah. And it's like, check our insurance. That's fine. We want him in as soon as possible to fix, and we'll pay for it. I don't care what insurance is going to do.
Yeah.
We will pay for it so that he doesn't lose this movement.
Man, that is so deep, man. Because when I went into, I can't remember, I was just trying to get an MRI. right? Like I was like, do I or do I not have tear? Turned out I do. My left one has gotten better, but my right one, she took me through some motions. The nurse practitioner at TOA took me through some motions, and as soon as she moved my hand one way, she said, "Yep, that's your rotator cuff," and it was painful. And so she gave me cortisone shots in both shoulders, and they've gotten a little bit better. So we're going to see how that goes, and then I'm going to do an MRI. But I was just trying to get an MRI. I was like, I drove around Tullahoma, I drove to Manchester, I went to several offices here, and I was like, listen, I'll give you cash. How much is an MRI? $1,000? I'll give you $1,000. Let's go do an MRI. Let me get an MRI. So I could take it to because I didn't want to drive to Murfreesboro, go in and sit down and her say, okay, let's do an MRI. I was like, I want to take it. Let me go ahead and get it now. I'll take it with me. That way it's all there, ready to go for the appointment. You can't do it. You can't go anywhere and get an MRI. You got to have a doctor's order.
You can't get it.
So I was like, so what you're telling me is I got to go to the doctor first, pay that office fee, right? Do all that. And then they give an order for an MRI. Then I've got to come back to get an MRI. And then once I get the MRI, that's going to take time to develop. And then I got to come back. I was like, this is insane. Why can't I just show up? Why can't I walk into a radiology center, say, here's my debit card. Let me get an MRI. Great. It's on a disc. I can take it to whoever I want to take it to.
Yeah. There's two really important points there, though. One is that we need to become more aware. Sorry about the noise. We need to become more aware of, we need to become better advocates, right? Better consumers, more aware of what our options are and how do we leverage insurance portfolios or private pay. We need to know how to be better at that as a consumer, as a medical healthcare consumer. The flip side of that is there's nobody out there freaking teaching people how to be better consumers of their healthcare, right? They're not. There's nobody out there going, hey, on Saturday, come to a 30-minute lecture on how to better use your insurance or how to better, navigate the medical healthcare system or
and why don't they? Right.
They probably don't want you to.
They probably don't want you to know.
Yeah.
And it's like that old age-old lesson. My dad told me, he's like, if you're ever unhappy about anything, follow the money. Mm-hmm. Who's getting paid by who? Yeah. Follow the money every time. So if we look at lobbyists, if we look at people that are in government advocating for their policy, their company, their financial program or whatever, it's lobbyists, they have more control over what happens to our healthcare than we do.
Yeah.
And they're all special interest. You know what I mean? And we're not their special interest.
Right.
And even more so, we're less than their special interest because we are self-pay, right? We're private pay, private insurance, self-pay, fee for service, whatever.
And that should be frightening. Like that should be terrifying,
right?
To most people. Like terrifying that the information they're being fed is warped in a certain way, right? It is spun in a certain way to influence your beliefs and influence the way that you think. It's not raw facts and it's not raw data. It is there to manipulate how your brain processes information, and it's there to influence how you believe, how you make decisions, how you vote, how you buy. That is terrifying.
Think about it.
What was interesting is why I told that story is whenever the one office here, Dr. Bill's office that I went into, and I was like, well, how much is it? I was talking to them. I was trying to see if they had a copy of my MRI. They were like, no, you've never been a patient here. We don't have anything for you here. And I was like, well, do you have the machine here? Can I just pay you and get one? And I was like, I'll pay cash or something. And they were asking about my insurance. And I said, well, I'll pay cash. I was like, I don't care if my insurance covers it or not. I'll pay cash. And some lady came out and she handed me a thing that says MD Save or something. And she was like, this is what I recommend people use when they don't have insurance. And I was like, I have insurance. Right? Like, I don't want to wait to find out if my insurance is going to cover this. I want it now because my appointment's on Friday. I'm willing to pay. And that it's like that concept just completely eludes them. They're like, why would anybody want to pay?
Right.
Well, because my priority isn't whether or not the thing is affordable. My priority is whether or not I have it available for my appointment on Friday to save me time. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like the automatic assumption is that affordability is everybody's concern. And I'm not trying to say that I make all this money, because I don't, but I am short. I have less time. How do I phrase this?
Time is more valuable.
Correct.
Yeah. You're not going to trade money for time anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You have
and I tell you,
have,
I think that's one of the things that has really, over time, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. That's one of the things that I think has really, over time, has morphed dentistry in how do I phrase this? It's done damage to the industry, in my opinion. Because with more and more people thinking that, I was having a conversation with a client the other night, and I said, listen, if dentists as a population accept that dentistry is elective, if you accept that narrative, then who's there to advocate for you? Who's there to go to bat like the chiropractic council that went to bat for private chiropractors all over the country and enabled chiropractors to stay open during the shutdown when dentists were closed? Explain to me how chiropractic medicine is less selective than dentistry.
Well, that's where
nobody advocated for the dentists. Nobody went to bat for them. You know what I mean?
But there's a governing body that's supposed to.
Right. But the dentistry government did not. Apparently chiropractic did, because chiropractors were open. I mean, I'm not saying I'm mad at them. I'm saying that I think dentists should have been open too. But anyway, my point is that if you're not advocating on the necessity of dentistry at that level, then who is? You know what I mean? And so I think the monetary concerns and this concept that dentistry is elective and it's a luxury and a lot of these kinds of things, I think it's altered, morphed, Ragan, to your point, our belief systems about dentistry, not just from the patient's perspective, but from the provider's perspective too. Because you take two different dentists that went to the same dental school, they came out of the same dental school, they got the exact same education, they both go into private practice, they're across the street from one another, and you go in and you run the clinical reports on this dentist. Let's say they're doing the same procedures, just crown and bridge. You run the clinical reports on this dentist and you run the clinical reports on this dentist. There's two very different clinical philosophies, right? And I don't necessarily think, I'm willing to bet their clinical philosophy in terms of when it's appropriate to do a crown and when it's appropriate to do a filling, I'm willing to bet their rule on when it's a crown is the same. I'm willing to bet it's the same. Where the difference comes in and why this doctor, provider A, is doing, their crown to filling ratio is 3.5 to 1, and this doctor's crown to filling ratio is 1 to 1. That difference is not because they learned clinical dentistry different. It's because their judgment of what the person that they're treating values and wants is different. How they perceive that or what they judge that to be. You follow what I'm saying? So it's almost like, I'm afraid that if I present this treatment plan to that patient is going to object. That's rejection. That's uncomfortable. So I'm going to present this instead because the probability that I get a yes is much higher.
It could be that, but here's what else it can be. And Carrie, I'm sure both of you guys have seen this as well. It could also be, I know insurance will cover it if this is the condition. Insurance will not cover it if this is the condition. Therefore, I've got to pass it with the filling because maybe the patient doesn't want to pay. And I think we work with some great dentists, and I think a lot of them really do. They don't want to financially overburden their patients. They want to do right by their patients, provide good quality work, but do it in a way that is affordable, right? Based on the patient's rules and values. So it's not that they learn dentistry differently, but I do think that some of them do look out for, I know insurance will offer some benefit if these conditions are present. It's not going to offer as much if these conditions are present. So we're going to do this, even though if I place this filling 10 years from now, I'm going to have to crown that too.
So what it is really, it's about, one of the best things I heard one of the dentists that I was talking to recently, said is that, and this was his quote, he goes, insurance is really just a discount program. I just communicate to my patients, it's nothing more than a discount program. Mm-hmm. You have enrolled in a discount program. And I really like that mindset because what it does is it shifts the dynamic away from I'm going to do dentistry based on what the insurance company tells me I can do. And I'm going to stay true to the art and science of the practice. And the minute it's a race to the bottom, right? The problem with what's happening right now is that the consumer is being deluded into believing that insurance is out for their best interest. What it's not is it's out to grab a piece of that pie. The whole reason that these insurance companies were created was to grab a piece of the dentist pie and to say, hey, I'm going to create a scenario where I'm going to send my clients to you. Oh, that's all well and good. But the more that they keep trying to chomp away at the pie, the problem is that they are diminishing the doctor's ability to make a clinical decision. And it's all smoke and mirrors. The doctor never lost control to diagnose and to do the treatment that was best, but they've been undermined by the insurance company and they have given up because the insurance companies make it too much work to do anything other than that. Right? So they've given up a level of control.
Yeah, I want to clarify something there really quick because I've heard this said, like insurance doesn't, and this might be controversial, but it is what it is. Insurance does not dictate standard of care, quality of care.
Right.
Quality of care. It does not happen. So when I hear dentists say that insurance, they downgraded this crown to a filling, right? That doesn't mean do a filling. That means do what the patient needs, and you're just going to get paid less for it. Right? You've accepted this trade-off with the insurance company that says, hey, I'm going to pay you X amount in the form of a deduction on my fees in exchange for patients that you're going to send me. And I'm going to make up the revenue with volume. Right?
Right.
But insurance doesn't dictate the standard of care. You make a conscious decision that says, hey, in exchange for volume of patients, I elect to do my crowns at a lesser fee and give the insurance the right to downgrade periodically procedures that I do if they feel like something else could have been done instead. That doesn't mean, and I realize the narrative that is played there because it's the way it's presented from the insurance companies that your provider should have done a filling. They shouldn't have done that crown. And so they're trying to take money out of your pocket, which is not the case. The reality is that the insurance company is trying to take money out of your pocket by creating a membership program that entices people to join based on the value called affordability. We're going to make dental care more affordable. Sign on with us, right? And everybody wants affordability. Okay, great. And so they have to, and so they got to have those certain rules in place so that they're able to make money in the process. But I don't know. I challenge the idea that insurance dictates quality of care. I don't believe that.
No, but here's what I mean by that. Okay. So here's what happens. Patient shows up at the office, whether it's a dental office or a medical office, right? Patient shows up at the office. They need XYZ procedure. Insurance doesn't want to cover XYZ procedure. Insurance tells patient, we're not going to cover XYZ procedure. Patient goes back to the office and says, I don't need this. My insurance company doesn't need this. So here's how insidious this is. They make the practice the middleman to do their bidding, to try to argue with the patient over what they need, while the insurance company is all hands off, all in the background, shilling out their pennies. And the practice becomes the bad guy. Because the insurance company doesn't manage the patient relationship.
Right.
The practice is in touch with the insurance company. Yeah. Go ahead, Carrie.
Well, you should have an advocate in the ADA, right? The American Dental Association should be advocating on the behalf of dentists to try to put some framework in place that protects them and also educates them about what the true relationship is with that insurance company. The ADA is spending if the ADA was actually working on behalf of the dentists that pay tremendous dues to them. What happened during COVID would have kept them open, right? It would have kept them functioning at a much higher capacity than they did for those months. If they were advocating for them, they would be educating them, and they would be applying pressure to the Board of Insurance when insurance tries to control treatment. The insurance companies are actually trying to control treatment by the way they're communicating, right? So there's all these rules, right? There's rules on HIPAA, there's all these rules, and yet for some reason, the insurance companies can declare the care that somebody deserves to have. They can override a doctor's decision. The only reason they can consistently override a doctor's decision is that somebody with more money, the insurance companies, which, oh, by the way, are actually investment houses, right? They're taking all that investment money and they're investing in things. So they're not going to give that money up. They needed to invest. So if they have all the money for the lobbyists, they have all the money to go out and fight these things, but the ADA is working with only the doctor's, contribution. So there's this huge manipulation. Yeah, an imbalance. That's it. And it's follow the money. Who's got more money? Travelers, insurance got caught doing this, back in the 80s or 90s? I don't remember. But
how many times have they been caught doing this? How many times?
Yeah.
How many movies have been made about them doing this?
What did they get caught doing? What?
About the fact that they manipulate the market.
Yeah.
Because they're using it as an investment. They're using this money for investment portfolios, which is fine. I'm not going to, people can make money however they want. That's fine. But there needs to be an agency out there that's big enough and powerful enough and strong enough to support the doctor's interests, the dentist's interests,
and the patient's interests.
That was my point earlier. That was my point earlier. I called it whistleblowers. What I meant was there needs to be some kind of ethics police that says, whoa, you can't do this. You can't do this. This is completely unethical.
But think about it this way. If you want to spin out to a conspiracy theorist, Ragan, you're going to love this. If we can make it so hard for people to independently pay for their health care, we can force people back into a more traditional work style, working for big companies, which then can control their money, their spending, their savings. Big companies can control right back to the company store. And that's much more easy for the government then to track their spending, track their time, manage their workflow. And then what happens? Because if we can eliminate the gig economy and force people back into a traditional workplace, the government can better control us. I can spin conspiracy all day long. But if we follow the money.
You need to come spend the weekend with me, because we could go completely off the rails on this.
You're going to be in Nashville in a couple of weeks at the Van Gogh Museum. You can go do your shopping trip.
I am going to be there. I'm going to be there. I got to go see this. But
because I mean, my big thing is, if every dentist went to their local study club, their local society, their local association, and all of them banded together and they said, you know what, we're not doing the insurance thing anymore, right? We're not going to do it. We're not going to take these subpar fees and have them tell us how we can practice or what they're going to cover and make us the middleman to do their bidding. And our front office takes all of the lashback from our patients. If they all banded together and they were like, you know what, we're done. We're done. We're not playing this game anymore. Then they would force the insurance companies to their knees. They would force them to increase their reimbursements if they wanted to stay in business. And they would force them to increase what they cover and have, weighing on the side of the provider instead of them just, begging for a little bit more.
Cut
them loose.
It's not. Yeah. And it's not even, there really isn't, if the dentist was really to be paying attention, Delta Dental is not intentionally sending patients their way. They're not saying, hey, Carrie, so glad you're a patient. I have this phenomenal dentist that does restorative, does wonderful crown and bridge work, by the way, does this and this and this. and they are here. Their name is Dr. So-and-so, and I need you to go see them right away. You're going to love the care you get there. They don't do that. They're like, oh, here's a list of 900 people that happen to be in our plan.
Right.
They're not advocating for that dentist. They're not doing anything.
Shoot a dart and pick one.
Yeah, here, good luck. And oh, by the way, if you call for help, if you ever try to call for help, figure out where you should go, who's in network, what you're out of pocket, they'll tell you to go to look at the website. They'll send you a link. They don't do anything to support these dentists. Nothing. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Hey, McKenna.
I know you had a great day at school. Ragan just said, yes.
Hey, gorgeous.
No, it's me, McKenna.
I know.
No, she called you gorgeous, meaning beautiful.
She said, no, it's me, McKenna. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of it really is a shame the way they've been kind of manhandled into this position to take 30, 40% off of their fees to be able to practice where, they can't really invest in advanced technologies because it continues to eat away at their profit margins, and they can't afford to pay their teams great, right? Like phenomenal wages because there's not enough profit margin there. It's insane.
Well, think about it. It's so crazy how I hear from a lot of my dentists that they can't get paid from insurance for a CBCT scan, like a cone beam. They can't get paid for those scans, right? Those scans allow them to do and identify different needs for the patient, right? So you have a completely different view using that than you do a PAN, than you do FMXs, that kind of thing. More dentists could more successfully do more challenging dentistry if they use that. So if they use a CBCT. And yet, the insurance companies won't pay for it. They struggle to communicate the value to the patient as to why they need that scan, that x-ray. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is they either don't invest in it so that they can't do the level of care that they would do otherwise, or identify the needs that they would identify otherwise, all because insurance is deemed that it's not something that's necessary. Yeah. But that's saying, oh, hey, patient, we really, we don't want you to have the best level of care. We really just need
to get by.
Get by. And
bite wings have been fine for 30 years. You're fine.
Yeah. You don't need anything better. You know what I mean? And the crazy thing about that is if we thought about that, if we took that out of dentistry and we took this thought out and we said, hey, you don't need anything better. Keep eating things that cause cancer. Go on ahead. People don't worry, drink that tab, drink lots of it, or if we said, oh gosh, people, they don't need EpiPens. You'll get over that bee sting, just roll them around with a little bit of dirt. Yeah, that worked 30 years ago or whatever. The crazy thing is that technology, science continues to move forward, and yet we want to put governors on it and hold it back because people want to pay for it.
And it's like if the CBCT is like the iPhone 11X or whatever, then bite wings are like the tin cans tied with a string.
Right? Exactly.
It's not even at the rotary phone level. Right? So it's like, and that's what they're going to pay for. They're going to pay for the tin cans on the strings. Right? Yeah. And
not getting
it's good enough. Yeah. Right? It's good enough.
And it's just, it's like the world has progressed to the way it has. Think about just communication as a whole, right? We now have the internet. We can communicate so much more efficiently and effectively. And we say, oh, this is good. People need the internet. The internet should be free. The internet should be this, should be that. And yet we want to put reins on things that really should be the consumer's choice, right? So the doctor should say, here's your choices, Miss Consumer. Here's what I can do for you. And here's the cost that applies to each of that. If I want to have all the whistles and bells and I want to have all the opportunity, yeah, maybe there is some out of pocket, but I shouldn't have, and I should understand that.
Yes.
But it shouldn't be completely negated because we should only be doing what insurance deems as passable, right? Whether the insurance company deems as passable. It should just be communicated. Hey, here's best practice standard of care. Here's what I can do. Here's the beautiful outcome that you're going to get. Here's how it matches. If you choose that route, here's what you're going to pay for it, and here's your payment plan.
And how great would it be? How great would it be to like have a means of educating the general population on what insurance is, what it is not, what optimum care is, what it is not, and what all of their options are. You know, just start educate. That would be so fantastic. Yeah. Just start educating the public on what their choices are.
Let's start doing seminars for the general public. Hold them at the Holiday Inn.
I'd have to learn a lot more. I don't know near enough about it.
I've got like 300. We can bring in people. What's Teresa Duncan with Odyssey Management? She's a dental insurance specialist.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there should be people out there that are advocating. First of all, I think that one of the things we need to do is apply pressure to our legislature so that they understand that as part of the Affordable Care Act, people need better understanding of what their power is inside and outside of healthcare, right? You have a lot of choices. Not everybody has to make a choice the same way.
Right.
And that should be part of it. You know, there should be people out there with the government that advocates on behalf of everybody, not just a portion of the population that wants their insurance to be free or their health care to be free.
There should be a mandatory, I mean, if we were going to truly promote a responsible culture, right? There should be like an adult education curriculum that starts immediately post, I'm dead serious, that starts immediately postgraduate of a college institution or high school if you don't go to college. And you've got 3 years to complete it. And it consists of these 21 hours and it's all online. And it will include things like funding your retirement, how to do your taxes, how to maximize your health insurance coverage.
It actually
road interstate ethics, right? Like if you're driving down the interstate, Ragan knows what I'm talking about. You're driving down, so my years at FedEx taught me a concept called a space cushion. What that means is you don't ride the bumper of the car in front of you. You leave like a 1 to 2 car lengths.
You need to be able to see the bottom of their license plate.
Yeah. You leave 1 to 2
unless they're driving slow in the fast lane.
Right.
Then you have permission to get right up on their bumper until they move.
But you leave 1 to 2 car lengths between you and the car in front of you. That's called a space cushion, right? Defensive driving technique. And so for whatever reason, other people on the interstate think, oh, look at him. He's saving that spot just for me. Right? Let me speed past him in the right lane and then swoop in real quick and have to hit on my brakes because I'm going too fast. Right. And so I was talking to somebody earlier and I was like, oh, hell no, it's not going to happen to me because I'm looking in my side mirror. And the moment I see somebody looks like they're trying to pass me in the right lane, I'm going to close that gap real quick.
I do that too. How'd that work for you, buddy?
I know. I did that whole
for like today or when to merge over. Like lane is closing. When should you change lanes if the lane's closing? I was coming back from Nashville this morning and I got between the 105 exit and the 96 exit. And it was almost standstill traffic. And then I was in the right lane because I was going to take the next exit. And then I see the sign. It says right lane closed. I was like, okay. I immediately got over into the left lane. And I was on a call with somebody and I said, all right, this is what's happening. Oh, right lane's closed. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get over. And all of these people that saw the same sign that I just saw and chose to stay in the right lane, not a chance in hell I'm letting them over.
That's my
It ain't happening.
Once they're going to run up and they're going to dart over, and I'm like, no, I'll let you hit me. I wanted a new car anyway. It's okay. Yeah. I'm like, no.
But that would be a great course to teach in the adult education series, right? Is interstate ethics. What, just all different kinds of stuff like that. Like people, there's so much stuff that adults just don't know because they're not responsible enough. Just your typical average person is just not responsible enough to go seek out that knowledge.
Well, it's part of you don't know what you don't know. They don't even know that it's a thing. And they don't know where to go to find it. So they don't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
Right. So that's the tough part.
Or you have the cool thing that I've been realizing more is how the more you believe you're right, the more you believe you know, the less time you spend moving out of your comfort zone and moving into a place of not knowing, you get so rigid in your thinking. You have so much less flexibility and you can't even imagine that you don't know it anymore. Yeah. Like you don't know all there is. And I think one of the best things that I learned, I made a lot of major career changes in my life, like huge jumps into different careers. The best benefit of all of that was to know that I don't know about anything. I mean, like every single time I had to go, nope, I know nothing about that. And I'll have to figure it out, and you have to be humbled and learn that you don't know.
Yeah. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially your D's and your C's. That is so hard.
It is. But it's the only way. It's the only way to question yourself, right? You have to be in a situation where you absolutely know nothing and you have to relearn. And so like John, to your point, I'd make that class every 5 years. Like you'd have to go back through that, like how to adult every 5 years because it's going to change.
That's what we should call it, adulting.
Yeah, how to adult like a good human.
Yes.
Be calm.
Be a
good human. Just be a good freaking human.
Yeah.
But I think for those people who are willing to constantly address their limiting beliefs, for those people who are constantly willing to say, yeah, I see it this way, but is it right? Is that true? Is that, could it be something else that I don't know? And who do I need to go? Like I was challenging my people today. I said, how often do you read a Facebook post from somebody you disagree with?
Never.
And they're like, right?
Almost never.
Right?
How do they know?
But what if we did? Right? What if we did? What if we went, like, I make myself listen to the news now for like 5 minutes a day, which is a huge diversion because I spent the last 15 years on a news sabbatical because I believe it's all crap. But the thing is that I finally said, okay, I have to just hear that there's something else different than my belief structure out there so that I can do some investigation or so that I can search it out, right? Because if I always go with this is what I believe is true, I know this, I'm just as bad as anybody else. If I don't debate a topic, look at people that I don't agree with and at least hear it, I'm as bad as everybody else because I have to challenge that belief.
Yeah, I think TikTok is going to swallow Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I was just thinking because one of the things Carrie's maybe she said it without saying it, but our attention spans as human beings is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And so TikTok is very quick. It's like I can get so many different stimulus in such a short period of time because I'm just scrolling through a thing.
It's the randomizer.
Yeah.
But how dangerous is that, y'all?
And the algorithm is tailored to what I like. So if you think about it, it's tailored to what I like. So if I like one post, right, then it starts showing me more of that. And so it didn't take long before it really kind of helps you understand who you are because I was I was talking to somebody on one of my teams because I got on it a while back and then I got off of it because it's addictive. Like you'll get on it and next thing you know, you've been on it for 30 minutes. Right. And I was talking to somebody on my teams and they were like, what do you see on TikTok so much? And I'm like, it's always like single moms dancing. It's police dogs doing stuff. It's, it was a handful of different stuff. And as soon as I said single moms, they say, okay, so now we know what you're looking for. And it's because TikTok's algorithm is tailored to show you more of what you like. So if you like a post, like a single mom dancing to a song, it's going to start showing you a lot more single moms dancing to songs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I was like,
so have you guys,
if you've gone on TikTok and seen how easy it is to just scroll to the next one and the next one and the next one and stay on there for 15 minutes and the 15 minutes has just gone by, right? It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. And that is keep your attention so that we can put ads in front of you.
And addictive is the perfect word. Have you guys watched The Social Dilemma?
No, I want to though.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch that because every time you get on there and you like something, and this is what you were alluding to, Jon, and it is addicting because every time you see something you like, you get that hit of dopamine, right? And dopamine is an addiction chemical. And so then it starts feeding you more of what you like, kind of like a hit of heroin or a hit of whatever. And so you just stay stuck in. People just stay stuck in that world and they think that that's what the world is, which in turn makes us a little more lazy, makes us a little less, what's the word? A little more lazy, a little less curious, because we're constantly being fed that which makes us feel good, that fits within our box or fits within our funnel. And so to Carrie's point, it makes us less likely to challenge what we already,
Yeah.
So the one thing.
But I did buy the TikTok leggings and I will let you know if it makes my butt look like a peach or not, because I've got the flattest butt on the planet. I can't believe
you paid money for that.
So my kids got so pissed at me because I was like, you know what? The one thing that's keeping you from having the life you want? And they're like, what? I said, this one thing keeping you from having the life you want.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, and then of course, but it is because if I didn't spend the time that I spend less than 15 minutes a day on social media. And frankly, I only do it to like my dentist posts and to go and see if my kids that are far away, if they're still alive. That's it. 15 minutes or less. Because it has Facebook, Instagram, no value to me. Most of the time I'm on Pinterest, I'm looking for two things: how I'm going to renovate my kitchen and media for writing training. I do training writing.
And
style. Not style. Long blazers are in. But I mean, it's and honestly, I wouldn't even look at style except that I speak, right? So I'm standing up in front of I want credibility. So I want to look like I'm not dressing from 1990, even if that's what's in. But other than that, I really put a lot of governors on it because I was like, why am I not having the life I want? Well, because I'm sitting in a freaking chair.
Yeah.
Like looking at somebody else's life. That's nuts.
It's no different. It's no different than you're so right on dopamine because I've said that before that I think that's the most addictive substance on the face of the planet. It's not all these hard, drugs that you see on the street. It's what's in our body already. And so the people that know this give us what they need to give us, that gives us the dose that we need, that keeps us comfortable so that we don't lash out. We don't challenge the status quo. We stay inside our nice little comfortable box and we do what we're told. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How brilliant to keep us home for a year.
Yeah.
With TikTok, Facebook, social media, and video games, and Netflix, and how awesome to control the masses. Was there ever a better device created to control the masses? We have willingly chained ourselves to a chair.
Yeah.
It's
and paid for it. And paid for it.
Yeah.
Paid for the
And
device.
Paid more for
paid
it than we
the
pay for
subscription,
groceries.
all the apps.
Right. And then, you know what? And then we do this and then we go, and then who's like, everybody's overweight. Well, I can't imagine why, because we haven't left our freaking chair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's make it easier and cheaper to get fast food than it is to get healthy food.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Reagan, I saw
we need a whole nother podcast on this topic.
I got Dr. Chopra locked in tomorrow morning and Dr. Downs locked in Friday.
Okay, good.
I'm going to redo the one with Todd Dubrow, and I'm redoing the one with Daniel Bird. I've already redone one of them because initially when I did it, the recordings recorded in speaker view rather than panel view. And so I had to fix that because when you watch the recording, you wouldn't be able to see everyone. You would just be able to see whoever's talking at that time. Right. So I had to redo a couple of them, and I'll have to redo the one with Todd, and I'm redoing the one with Daniel. But
I want to redo this one and focus on this last 15 minutes of this conversation, because this is what the population needs to be educated on. And most people they're so plugged into their phones, Carrie, they're not paying attention, and they don't see the tentacles. They don't see.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Magic, all magic is like magic. Like, somebody does like card tricks and stuff. All it is a deception. It's an illusion. Like it's what do they call it? It's a misdirection.
Misdirection.
Like get you to pay attention to this while this over here is taking place.
Yeah.
And we are so susceptible to that, right?
Yeah.
And it's the
that's
brain.
what I believe the news is. I believe the news is misdirection.
Exactly.
I want you focused over here so you don't see this over here. We need to get you upset and angry and all plugged into this so you don't pay attention to what's going on behind the smoke screen. That's what I believe the news is.
And the thing is that we have such a hard time as humans setting limits, right? We have a really hard time creating a framework that actually better serves us and to set limits. And I do it all the time, and I was thinking, and I was thinking, how do I set a more healthy framework? There was this article that just came out that because of COVID, people cannot figure out when to stop working. And so what's happened is that we're on this massive grind, and stress is higher than it's ever been. Suicide's higher than it's ever been. Drug addiction, dopamine addiction, all of this is higher than it's ever been. All of this was constructed, right? All of this has been constructed by the news. All of this. And I'm not saying there's not a pandemic. Yeah, there's a pandemic. And I'm not saying that that's not true. But what I am saying is that we have chosen to not create a framework or a boundary that is healthy. We chose all that, right? All of us chose that. And so I have a lot of friends in Europe. They go on vacation. And when they go for a month. And not only do they go for a month, they leave all that crap behind. They do not work. They don't work on vacation. They send everybody a note and they say, I'm not working. And they get right in the head for a month every year. They get this right. They get back to who they are, what are their beliefs, all that. There is something super healthy about that, right? I can't imagine leaving my doctors. Like I'm sitting here thinking, all right, Sean and I are going to go out west. I've agreed not to work for 10 days. I've orchestrated the whole thing, but that means I'm going to have to set boundaries. So my dopamine is my clients, right? That's my dopamine. I love working with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they need me to be better. My clients are always going to need me to be better. I need to set that framework up to be better. And part of that is stepping away, right? But we don't. We don't do that service for ourselves as humans. We've been trained now with these shots of dopamine not to do that.
Yeah. To stay at the stress level.
Right. And if we think about how the brain filters, right? How does the brain filters, what is it? It's 11 million bits of information a second, 11 million bits of information a second. And all of that's going through our filters. All of that's going through our meta programs. All of that's going through our history, our perception of time and space, our experience, values, rules, all of that. all that information because of this, right? Because we've increased that. How are we expecting our brain to heal? I mean,
without rest.
how are we, right? How do we expect our brain to heal if we cannot even make a distinction as to this is a healthy framework? And then have the rigor to hold ourselves to that. Because like I'm right now, I'm like seriously trying to talk myself into going, basically leaving all my computers, my iPads, all of that at home. Simply having a phone so that if we're out hiking in Yellowstone and there's a bear, I can call for help. Like can I set that amount of rigor on myself? It seems so easy, right?
Which
on Facebook, they're like, could you live in this cabin without any technology for you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you think? So, the whole argument, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? So which came first? A device that can control and manipulate you, or the demand for that device?
The device came first in this instance.
No, the demand.
The demand
Think
came
about
first.
it.
I told you. The demand came first.
Drugs started a long time ago.
I want information and I want it right now. How do I get information? My consumers want information. They want it right now. How do I get it to them quicker? Put it in their hand. We want music. We want portable music we can carry around with us rather than CD players. How do I give that to them? Put it in the phone.
Yeah, but wasn't it Steve Jobs whose famous quote was, "How do people know what they want until they've seen it?"
Mm-hmm. Until they, right. How do people know what they want if they've never?
People have always, right? But isn't it? But could it be that this is just the fancy wrapping on another form of? We know that humans intrinsically lack self-control. We know that. So if I'm an advertiser, what's the difference between this and chocolate to somebody who loves chocolate, or this and heroin to somebody who loves heroin? Or, I mean, go back in time. If it was somebody who loved war, if it's somebody who loves anything.
But whose responsibility? Because I struggle with this one, because this is the same argument that I have with Mom all the time. When we talk about drug dealers, who if I've got a heroin addict, right? Mm-hmm. Whose fault is it that person's a heroin addict? She claims it's the drug dealer.
No,
it's not the drug dealer's fault. They're selling drugs, but the addict didn't have to buy it. Right. So whose responsibility is it? Is it the company's fault for selling it, or is it your fault for not practicing self-control? Can a company assume that, hey, we've got, just like anything out there, anything can be taken advantage of, right? Guns, with all the gun control laws and all that stuff that's going on right now, right? There are people that will obey the law. There are people that aren't, that won't obey the law. Personally, I believe that the people that want a gun are going to break the law to get a gun, right? So I don't think gun control law, I think that's a complete just garbage suggestion.
It's the human. Gun didn't find
if you want to break the law, if you want to do something that's illegal, you don't care if it's illegal, you can do it. You're going to find a way to do it. So, I mean, is it okay for the company to assume that says, hey, we're going to create this device that people can use and it's really useful? Because I see a lot of benefits and a lot of goods. I like the fact that I can now tell my 5th grade teacher, I told you so. I'm going to have a calculator on me at all times. I don't need to know how to do these equations, right? I like being able to, if I have a question, I like being able to pull out my phone, Google it, and get the answer, right? So there's a lot of pluses, a lot of value, I think, in that. So I think it's okay for the company to say, listen, this thing, if you're not careful, if you don't practice some self-control, this thing could potentially interfere with your ability to get stuff done. Right. So just use your discretion. Do what you think is best. I don't think it's necessarily the company's fault so much as it is the person just for not having self-control and self-discipline. Carrie, I'll go ahead and let you go too. I appreciate you guys joining me.
It was fun.